So, imagine a landscape that just feels almost impossibly vibrant.
Like someone turned the saturation way up.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Like a painting where the artist used a little too much color, but it somehow just totally works. You have these roads made of red
Huh?
earth.
Like deep rust-colored red.
Yeah, ribbons of it just cutting through these emerald green hills. And the air is so fresh, it feels like it's scrubbing your lungs with peppermint and salt spray.
And apple blossoms.
Right. Everywhere you look, there's the scent of apple blossoms or the distant rhythmic crash of the Atlantic Ocean. It's Prince Edward Island.
It really is this glistening, nostalgic place.
And for millions of people around the world, it feels like a second home that they've never actually visited.
Which is largely because it's a setting that is just inextricably linked to one specific character.
Hmm.
I mean, the landscape and the girl are almost the exact same thing in the cultural imagination.
Totally. But the interesting thing about the deep dive we are doing today is that we aren't actually visiting the child everyone knows.
Right, we're sipping past that.
Yeah, we aren't talking about the girl with the red pigtails breaking a slate over a boy's head because he called her carrots.
A classic moment, but no, not today.
No, today we are returning to a character who is standing on this very precarious ledge. That sort of strange, murky, often confusing gap between the wild imagination of girlhood and the heavy, often boring responsibilities of becoming a woman.
Exactly, we're going back to Avonlea. But the stakes have really changed for you as a reader.
The pigtails are mostly gone.
Mostly, yeah.
And the problems are suddenly a lot more complex than just accidentally dyeing your hair green or, getting your best friend drunk on currant wine.
Which was hilarious, but yes, today we are doing a deep dive into this sequel to one of the most beloved books of all time.
And just to get the formalities right up front, the book name is Anne of Avonlea Novel by Lucy Maud Montgomery.
And it's a title that actually signals a massive shift right from the cover. I mean, if you think about it, the first book was Anne of Green Gables.
Right, which is very domestic.
Exactly. It was about an orphan finding a home, a specific roof over her head. But this book is Anne of Avonlea.
It implies she belongs to the village now.
She's a public figure, a teacher, a neighbor, a citizen. She's woven into the community fabric in a way that she just wasn't before.
And to guide us through all of this, we are basing our discussion today on the Puffin Classics edition of the novel.
Which is crucial because it includes some really fantastic extra material.
Yeah, like the introduction by Budge Wilson.
Who actually wrote the prequel before Green Gables.
Right, and there are these really fascinating author files in this edition, too, that give us the context of why Montgomery wrote this book and the immense pressure she was under at the time.
So, okay, let's unpack this. We should probably set the scene for everyone listening.
Let's do it. Where exactly are we in the timeline?
So we are picking up almost exactly where the first book left off. We're looking at an Anne Shirley who is, quote, half past 16.
Half past 16. I just
Yeah.
love that specificity.
That's so Anne.
It really sounds so much more mature than just 16 in her mind, doesn't it? Like that extra half year grants her all the wisdom of the ancients.
It certainly does to her.
Mm.
But the context surrounding that age is actually quite heavy, which I think people often forget because the book itself is so charming.
Yeah, the ending of the first book was pretty tragic.
It was. The dream ending was completely shattered. Matthew Cuthbert, her adoptive father and arguably the biggest kindred spirit she ever had, died of a heart attack.
And Marilla, the stern but loving woman who adopted her, is losing her eyesight.
So the original plan, Anne going off to college on the Avery Scholarship to get her degree immediately,
That was all scrapped.
completely scrapped.
She made this massive sacrifice. She chose to stay home at Green Gables to help Marilla save the farm and, frankly, save her eyesight.
And she's taken the job as the village school teacher. She has really stepped up.
Which brings us to the core mission of this deep dive. We want to explore how Anne of Avonlea serves as a bridge.
Because this isn't just a collection of funny scrapes.
Even though we will definitely talk about the cow and the blue paint,
We have to talk about the cow.
because they are hilarious. But it really is a study of those in-between years. It's about reconciling the romance of how we think life should be with the often gritty or just plain disappointing reality of how life actually is.
It's basically the sophomore slump of life.
The honeymoon phase of childhood is over, but real adulthood, like marriage and career stability, hasn't quite started.
It's the awkward middle. And honestly, nowhere is that awkward middle more apparent than in Anne's new job.
So let's look at Anne the professional. She is the new school ma'am of Avonlea.
Which is a lot of responsibility for a 16-year-old.
Half past 16.
Right, half past 16. And knowing Anne, she doesn't just walk into this job wanting to teach the alphabet and times tables and make sure nobody eats paste.
Not at all. She has a vision with a capital V.
Oh, absolutely. She enters that schoolhouse with what she herself admits are rose-tinted ideals.
She views teaching as this grand moral crusade.
She isn't just teaching rural farm kids how to read. In her mind, she is molding the future statesmen and college presidents of Canada.
She literally has this recurring daydream where a future prime minister bows over her wrinkled hand decades later and thanks her for kindling his ambition when he was a boy.
It's so theatrical.
It's classic Anne, though. There's this quote in the source material that really stood out to me as basically her entire philosophy of life, not just teaching. She says, "I like to add some beauty to life. I don't exactly want to make people know more, but I'd love to make them have a pleasanter time because of me."
That is the absolute core of her character, and it's a beautiful philosophy. It's about emotional intelligence rather than just academic intelligence.
But the book immediately contrasts that high-minded romantic ideal with the harsh facts of the Avonlea schoolhouse.
And the harshest fact of all has a name.
Anthony Pye.
Anthony Pye.
Ugh, the Pyes. Even the name sounds disagreeable.
It's almost onomatopoeic.
Right, Pye. It sounds like something you'd step in.
The Pye family is effectively the antagonist force in Avonlea. They aren't evil villains. They're just
deeply unpleasant.
unpleasant, cynical, rude. And Anthony is their representative in Anne's classroom. He is there specifically to test her.
He brings a snake to school to scare the girls.
He refuses to study.
He mocks her openly.
And this is where the sociological aspect of the book comes in. Because the community, led by Mrs. Rachel Lynde, is constantly telling Anne she's doing it wrong.
Because she hit him.
Exactly. The old guard believes in the rod. Mrs. Lynde tells her explicitly, you can't teach school without a switch.
It's a total clash of generations. Anne is trying to bring this progressive, empathetic approach to a very conservative environment.
She wants to win him over with kindness. She wants to reason with him.
But it just doesn't work initially.
Not at all. He just thinks she's weak. He sees kindness as a fundamental lack of authority.
It's a real struggle for her. She tries to be angelic, and Anthony just sneers at her.
But there is a turning point, and it's very telling that it doesn't happen in the classroom.
It happens on the road.
And the elements, yeah.
The walk in the snow, right? The scene is so vivid in the text.
Yes, it's this brutal winter day. Anne is struggling through the drifts. The wind is howling. She's physically exhausted. And Anthony Pye catches up to her.
And he could easily just leave her there.
He could mock her. But the man in him, or the latent gentleman, or perhaps just the deeply buried decency, takes over.
He offers to help her. He carries her heavy books.
It's a small gesture, but it shifts the power dynamic completely.
It levels the playing field.
Yeah.
They're just two humans against the storm.
Anne realizes later that she didn't win him over by forcing him to be good. And she didn't win him over by lecturing him on high ideals either.
She won his respect by simply persisting and being a decent human being alongside him.
It's a victory for her theory over the whipping theory, but it was so much harder earned than she expected.
It wasn't the fairy tale victory she wanted.
No, it was a gritty, real-world victory.
So Anthony Pye is the reality check. He's the anchor dragging her down to earth. But then we have the other side of the coin, the student who is basically Anne's dream come to life.
Paul.
Paul Irving.
The kindred spirit.
He feels almost like a magical realism character compared to the Pyes.
He really does. He's this genius, imaginative little boy from Boston.
Living with his grandmother, and he talks exactly like Anne.
He looks at the shoreline and sees, quote, rock people.
And he sees the new moon as a little golden boat full of dreams.
He uses phrases like east of the sun, west of the moon.
Now, some critics, and even some readers, find Paul to be a bit much.
A bit cloying, yeah.
Like, he's too perfect. He's like a little poet laureate in short pants.
That's a very fair critique. He is extremely precocious. But if you look at the function he plays in the novel, it makes complete sense why he is there.
Paul is a mirror.
Exactly. He represents the childhood Anne is leaving behind. By nurturing Paul, Anne is validating her own way of seeing the world.
Because she knows that the Anthony Pyes and the Rachel Lyndes of the world want to crush that imagination.
They want to make everyone practical and dull.
So by protecting Paul, she's essentially protecting that part of herself. She's defending her own inner child.
That's spot on. She's proving to herself that you can grow up without losing the spark. And his background is really important too. He's motherless, just like Anne was.
His father's away in the States, he's lonely.
And Anne becomes his emotional outlet. It shows Anne's capacity for maternal love long before she has children of her own.
She isn't just a teacher to him, she's a guardian of his soul.
Which is exactly what she wanted to be.
Now, speaking of maternal love, we really have to talk about the situation at Green Gables.
The domestic chaos.
Because if teaching wasn't enough pressure, the situation at home completely explodes.
Marilla, who we all know, likes things quiet, orderly, and sensible.
She likes her floors spotless and her schedule strictly kept.
Suddenly finds herself adopting twins.
This is a major plot engine for the book. Marilla takes in Davy and Dora Keith.
They are distant cousins whose mother has recently died. And it's supposed to be temporary, just until an uncle can take them.
But as often happens in Avonlea, temporary stretches out and becomes permanent.
And these twins, they are a total study in contrast. It's almost like a psychological experiment on nature versus nurture.
Right. If you were ordering children from a catalog specifically for Marilla Cuthbert, you would order Dora.
On paper, yes, absolutely. Dora is the perfect Victorian child.
She's well-behaved, she's industrious, she never gets dirty.
She speaks only when spoken to. She wipes her feet. She eats what is put in front of her.
But, and this is the really fascinating insight from the text, neither Anne nor Marilla can really warm up to her.
Anne even goes so far as to call her uninteresting.
Which is such a harsh thing to say about a 6-year-old.
It really is.
She's uninteresting. It just sounds cruel.
It is harsh, but it reveals what Anne and Marilla actually value now. Dora has no spark.
She has no inner life that is visible to them.
She's like a little robot. And then, on the other hand, there is Davy.
Davy is a, quote, limb. That's the word they use. A holy terror.
He is pure chaotic energy. He eats sweets he's not supposed to. He locks his sister in the tool shed.
He asks if he can be a Mormon so he can have lots of wives to cook for him because he hates cooking.
He's just constantly boundary testing.
And the toad, I literally laughed out loud at the toad incident.
Oh, that soda is iconic.
He puts this big slimy toad right in Anne's bed just to see what will happen.
And Anne, who is usually so brave, has to carry this toad down to the garden with a fire shovel because she's too squeamish to touch it.
It's great slapstick, but it definitely serves a deeper purpose.
It really does. Here is where the character development for Marilla just shines. In a quiet moment, Marilla admits to Anne that she actually loves Davy more.
She loves the bad child more than the good child.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Is it just because he's a boy and she originally wanted a boy?
I don't think so. I think it directly parallels her relationship with Anne. Remember, Marilla wanted a boy originally, but she got Anne, a difficult, imaginative, chatty child who broke rules and forgot chores.
But Marilla learned to love that spark.
Exactly. She learned that a challenge is better than silence. Davy has that same unpredictable life force.
Whereas Dora's just functional.
It shows that Marilla has fundamentally changed over the years. She values personality and heart over mere obedience now.
That is a really deep take on Marilla. She's learned that a quiet house is a lonely house. She'd rather have the noise and the mess if it means there's life.
Spot on. Davy forces them to engage with life. He asks those impossible questions. Where is sleep? Why can't I do what I want?
He makes them think. He keeps them young.
And speaking of chaos and making people think, we cannot discuss Anne of Avonlea without bringing up the new neighbor.
Oh, Mr. J. Harrison.
And his parrot, Ginger.
This is just pure comedy gold. So Anne and Marilla have this new neighbor who is described as a crank.
He's gruff, he hates women, and he has this parrot that shouts, "Bless my soul! What's that red-headed snippet coming here for?" Whenever Anne walks in.
Which is Anne's absolute worst nightmare.
Because she's so sensitive about her hair.
And here is Bird literally mocking her.
But this relationship gives us one of the funniest sequences in the entire series.
The cow incident.
The cow incident.
Okay, we really need to unpack the cow incident because on the surface, it's just slapstick, but it says so much about Anne's state of maturity.
So Anne has a cow named Dolly, and Dolly has this bad habit of breaking fences and getting into Mr. Harrison's oat field.
And Mr. Harrison has warned Anne, keep your cow out of my oats or else he's very serious about his oat.
Anne, being Anne, promises on her honor that it won't happen again. Then one day she comes home and sees a Jersey cow in the oats.
She goes into an absolute panic. She and Diana chase this cow. The text describes them running until they are breathless, muddy, and totally disheveled.
They're shouting, waving sticks. They finally corner it in the milking pen.
And just then, perfectly timed, a man drives by who happens to want to buy a cow.
And here is Anne's impulsiveness. The old Anne comes roaring back. She thinks, if I sell the cow, The problem is gone.
She doesn't think about the logistics at all.
She sells the cow on the spot for $20.
She feels so triumphant. She thinks she has solved the problem. She has outsmarted the universe.
Until she walks back to the pasture a little later.
And finds her actual cow, Dolly, peacefully chewing cud.
The realization hits her like a freight train.
She sold the wrong cow.
She sold Mr. Harrison's cow.
It's a complete disaster. It's theft. I mean, accidental, but it's theft.
She has to go to this ogre, Mr. Harrison, and confess that she not only let his cow get out, or so she thought, but she actually sold it to a butcher in town.
The walk to his house is described like a walk to the gallows. She is trembling. She fully expects him to sue her, to yell, to banish her.
But this is the twist. When she tells him the whole ridiculous story, fully expecting him to explode,
He starts laughing.
he just cracks up. It breaks the ice entirely. It's the exact moment they stop being enemies and start being friends.
It teaches Anne a really valuable lesson about judgment.
Because she judged him as a crank with no soul. But he clearly has a sense of humor.
And he judged her as a flighty girl. But he respects her courage in actually coming to confess face to face.
It turns out shared laughter is the best bridge.
And it also turns out he's not just a bachelor, right? He has a secret.
He does. Later in the book, we find out he actually has a wife, Emily.
He ran away from her.
Because she was too fussy. She wouldn't let him smoke or have any peace in his own house. She made him take off his boots before he came inside, that sort of thing.
Which is a hilarious inversion of the usual trope where the woman runs away. Here, the man ran away to live in a messy house with a swearing parrot.
And Anne, inadvertently, helps reconcile them.
How does she do that again?
She writes these society notes for the local newspaper, and she mentions that Mr. Harrison is a changed man, that he's attending church and becoming a pillar of the community.
And his wife sees it in the paper.
She thinks he's reformed and comes all the way to Avonlea to take him back. It's a comedy of errors that ends in a surprisingly touching reconciliation.
It really seems like good intentions going awry is the major theme of this book, which brings us perfectly to the AVIS.
The Avonlea Village Improvement Society.
This is Anne, Gilbert, and the other young people deciding they are going to beautify Avonlea.
They have so much energy. They want to tear down old fences, plant trees, and make everything, quote, pretty.
It reflects that youthful optimism that we can change the world, or at least our corner of it.
They honestly think they can just will the town into being better. But the book grounds this in reality very quickly. The expert insight here is that the community reaction is mixed at best.
Mrs. Lynde warns them right from the start. She says people don't want to be improved.
And she's completely right. People like their ugly fences. They don't want a bunch of teenagers telling them what to do with their property.
But the crown jewel of their failure is definitely the village hall.
The Blue Hall disaster. This is a crucial plot point for understanding the maturity theme.
So they raise money to paint the hall. It's a noble goal. The building is peeling and ugly.
They hire a painter, Joshua Pye,
Of course, a pie.
who gives them a deal on the paint. But he's a wild card.
Anne and the committee don't actually check the color. They trust him because the price is right.
And when the paint goes up, it is not a nice, subtle green or a classic white.
It is a bright, hideous, aggressive blue.
The description in the text is vivid. It's a blue that literally screams at you.
It's like a robin's egg blue gone completely wrong. And once it's on, it's on.
The hall becomes a massive local joke. It's a byword in the neighboring settlements. People drive from miles away just to point and laugh at it.
Anne is mortified. She feels the entire weight of responsibility because she was one of the leaders. She feels like she has disgraced the town.
But this is where the book really shines as a bridge to adulthood. Think about it. In a standard children's book, maybe the paint would miraculously wash off in a rainstorm.
Or they'd find a pot of gold to repaint it immediately.
Exactly. But in Anne of Avonlea, the hall stays blue.
That's such a great point. They actually have to live with the mistake.
They do. And eventually they realize that, hey, the roof is shingled and the building is preserved from the weather, even if the color is ugly.
It's a lesson in success isn't always what you picture.
They did good work, even if the aesthetic result was a disaster. It's about resilience. You make a mistake, the town laughs, you hold your head high, and you just keep going.
You dance in the blue hall anyway.
You dance in the Blue Hall anyway. I love that.
So let's shift gears to something a little more magical. We talked about the gritty reality of the Blue Hall and the chaos of the twins, but there is a section of this book that feels like it dropped straight out of a fairy tale.
The Echo Lodge.
This is honestly one of the most atmospheric parts of the novel.
Anne and Diana are walking in the woods, and they stumble upon this hidden, stone house.
It's described almost like an enchanted palace hidden away from the world.
It's surrounded by trees, completely covered in ivy.
And living there is Miss Lavender Lewis.
Miss Lavender is a fascinating character study. She is a spinster, middle-aged, living alone with her quirky maid, Charlotta the Fourth.
Wait, you have to explain the naming convention there. Charlotta the Fourth.
It's a great running gag. Miss Lavender hires from the same family. She's had Charlotta the First, Second, and Third. Now she's on the Fourth.
And Charlotta is hilarious. She wears these enormous bows on her hair and absolutely adores Miss Lavender.
She's the grounded, practical foil to Miss Lavender's dreaminess. She's the one actually baking the cake while Miss Lavender dreams about who might come to eat it.
But Miss Lavender herself, she isn't a sad, bitter spinster.
No, she's almost like what Anne would be if she never left her imagination.
That is a brilliant analysis. Miss Lavender plays pretend constantly.
She sets elaborate tea parties for guests who aren't even there. She dresses up in silks and organzas just for herself.
She lives in a world of echoes and dreams.
She is a direct mirror for Anne. She shows the incredible beauty of keeping your imagination alive, but also the real danger of letting it isolate you from the world.
Because underneath all that whimsy, she is deeply lonely. She's frozen in time.
She had a romance 25 years ago with Stephen Irving, who turns out to be Paul Irving's father.
Small world in Avonlea.
Very small. They broke up over a silly quarrel. Both were too proud to apologize. He went off to America, and she stayed behind in the stone house.
Pride seems to be the villain in that relationship.
It is. She's been waiting in that stone house for a quarter of a century, and this is where Anne steps in. Anne is the catalyst.
We call her the Prince Facilitator.
Because she brings Paul into Miss Lavender's life.
She connects the dots. She realizes Paul is Stephen's son. She introduces them.
And eventually, Stephen Irving returns to PEI.
The reunion scene is so romantic. But it's also very grounded. It's not just happily ever after magic. It's about two middle-aged people finally putting aside their pride.
It validates Anne's romantic worldview. Throughout the book, people are constantly telling Anne life isn't a storybook. But in this one instance, it is.
It proves that sometimes if you are willing to forgive, you can have the fairy tale ending.
It serves as a necessary counterbalance to the realism of the Blue Hall. Sometimes you fail, but sometimes the romance is real.
But the interesting contrast is that not everyone gets the fairy tale ending. Or at least not the same fairy tale ending. Which brings us to Diana Barry.
This is a really hard moment for Anne. Diana, her bosom friend, the person she swore eternal friendship with in the first book, gets engaged.
To Fred Wright. And Anne is disappointed, is putting it mildly. She's practically devastated.
She genuinely is. She finds Fred completely commonplace.
He's not a dashing hero. He doesn't have a melancholy brow.
He's just Fred, a nice, jovial farmer who talks about turnips and the price of pork.
Anne feels like a massive gap is opening up between her and Diana. She says it does seem so hopelessly grown up.
It's that universal feeling when your friends start hitting life milestones that you just aren't ready for yet.
It's the pain of divergent paths. Diana is choosing the traditional Avonlea life. Marriage, housekeeping, settling down immediately.
Anne is realizing that her path is going to be different. She loves Diana, but she cannot understand what Diana sees in Fred. She genuinely thinks Diana is settling for less than she deserves.
There's that great line where Diana says, "You'll understand sometime when your own turn comes."
And Anne is thinking, my turn won't look anything like this. My turn will be tragic and poetic.
It's a crucial lesson in acceptance. Anne has to learn to let Diana be happy in her own way.
She can't impose her romantic ideals on her best friend. It's a very mature realization. She has to let go of the idea that she and Diana will be the exact same person forever.
Growing up means allowing your friends to become who they are, even if it's different from who you are.
And speaking of maturity, the end of the book brings a massive shift for Anne's future. We call it the bend-in-the-road approach.
Right, so two major things happen that completely change the game. First, Marilla's eyesight stabilizes.
That's the first key. She sees a specialist, and he says if she's careful, she won't go blind. That relieves the immediate, intense pressure on Anne.
Then Mrs. Rachel Lynde's husband, Thomas, passes away.
Which is sad, but narratively very convenient.
Extremely convenient. Mrs. Lynde doesn't want to live alone. Marilla shouldn't live alone.
So in a stroke of absolute genius plotting by Montgomery, Mrs. Lynde moves into Green Gables to live with Marilla.
It solves everything. Marilla has company and help with the twins, who are staying, by the way.
And Mrs. Lynde has a home. And Anne is finally free.
She is free to go to Redmond College. She's been on pause for 2 years, serving her community, growing up.
Now she can leave her little kingdom.
It's bittersweet, though. She loves Avonlea, she loves the school, she loves the familiarity of it all.
But she's ready. She has outgrown the village schoolhouse. She has questions that Avonlea just can't answer.
And that leads us to the most significant relationship shift in the book, the one everyone waits for, Anne and Gilbert.
The slow burn. The absolute slowest burn in Canadian literature.
Throughout Anne of Avonlea, they are strictly chums.
They are co-teachers. They run the Improvement Society together. They study Virgil together in the evenings. There's almost no romance on the surface at all.
Except for the gossip. Everyone else assumes they are courting. Mrs. Lynde assumes it. Marilla assumes it.
Even the students probably assume it.
But Anne is oblivious. She has fun-zoned him so hard that she genuinely doesn't see it.
She values his mind, she values his friendship, but she doesn't see the romance until the very end.
It happens at Miss Lavender's wedding.
The veil-lifted moment.
Yes, it's a beautiful, quiet scene. They are walking back from the wedding. The garden is beautiful. The sun is setting.
Gilbert makes a comment. He looks at Anne and says something about how beautiful it would be if two people who loved each other never had to be separated.
And Anne blushes.
That blush changes everything. The source material says it was as if a veil that had hung before her inner consciousness had been lifted.
She suddenly sees him not just as a school chum, but as a man, as a potential partner.
As someone who could be more.
But, and I love this, they don't kiss, they don't get engaged. He doesn't propose right there in the garden.
No, the book ends on the possibility. It ends with a question mark, not a period. It's remarkably subtle.
It actually retreats from the feeling because it's new and scary. She pulls her hand away.
But you, as the listener, know the dynamic has shifted permanently. You can't unring that bell.
Why do you think Montgomery wrote it that way? Why not give them the big romantic moment right there?
Because Anne just isn't ready. She's going to college. She has to find herself before she can truly find her partner.
If they got engaged now, she would just be another Diana Barry, settling down in Avonlea.
Montgomery wants Anne to go out into the world first. It's a very feminist choice, really. She needs to be Anne of Redmond before she can be Anne of Gilbert.
So what does this all mean in the context of the author herself? We have these amazing author files in the Puffin Classics edition that shed some light on this.
We do. And the context of L.M. Montgomery is vital to understanding the book. We have that introduction by Budge Wilson to look at where she discusses the little white room.
This part gave me goosebumps. So Montgomery attended Halifax Ladies College, right?
Yes, and while she was there, she lived in a tiny room called 3.5 because it was on a weird offshoot of the third floor. There wasn't even a proper room number.
It was tiny, bare, and white, and Montgomery absolutely loved it. It was her ultimate refuge.
In the books, Anne constantly refers to her little white room at Green Gables. It's her sanctuary where she can cry or dream or just be herself without judgment.
Budge Wilson argues that Anne's room is Montgomery's room.
It perfectly connects the author's real-life need for solitude and imagination with her characters.
Montgomery was a very public person, a minister's wife later in life, a famous author who desperately needed a private space to be herself.
Anne is the exact same. She gives so much to the community, to the twins, to Paul, but she needs that white room to recharge.
It's a great reminder that even the most social, helpful people need a place to retreat.
It emphasizes how deeply personal these books were for her.
But there's another side to the publication history that I found really surprising. Anne of Avonlea was basically written under duress.
It was. The first book, Green Gables, was a smash hit, unexpectedly huge.
And the publisher immediately demanded a sequel. They wanted it right now.
Montgomery wrote Avonlea in a hurry. She was under immense pressure. She actually worried it wasn't very good. She thought it was too juvenile.
Which totally explains the episodic feel of it. It's like a series of short stories, the cow, the hall, the wedding, just strung together.
It doesn't have the same driving plot as the first one.
But paradoxically, that structure kind of works for the theme.
Because life isn't one big plot. It's a series of Jonah days where everything goes wrong, followed by golden days where everything is perfect.
The episodic nature mimics the feeling of living through those two very transitional years.
Like the picnic in the woods.
Yes, the golden picnic. It's a chapter where nothing really happens. They just eat, talk, and enjoy nature.
But Anne realizes those are the exact days you remember when you're 80.
It's a beautiful sentiment that likely came from Montgomery's own appreciation for those fleeting moments of peace amidst her busy, somewhat difficult life.
She perfectly captured the feeling of memory itself.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Anne of Avonlea, let's quickly summarize the journey. We've watched Anne navigate that tricky sophomore slump of life.
She's not the child breaking slates anymore, but she's not quite the poised woman of the later books. She's in the messy middle, figuring it out.
She's made her fair share of mistakes. She sold the neighbor's cow. She painted the hall blue.
But she's also done profound good. She nurtured a genius in Paul Irving. She secured a loving home for the twins. She reunited lost lovers.
She succeeded not by becoming a perfect adult, but by refusing to become a cynical one.
She kept the race of Joseph, the kindred spirits, alive in her heart, even when she was dealing with the pies and the messy realities of life.
She proved that you can be an adult and still believe in fairies, metaphorically speaking.
And as she heads off to Redmond College, she's leaving behind the safety of being a big fish in a small pond.
Which leads us to a provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Anne had it incredibly good in Avonlea.
She was adored, she was comfortable, she was the local celebrity. She could have stayed.
She could have married a local boy, taught school forever, and been perfectly happy.
But she chose the bend in the road. She chose the massive risk of the unknown.
So the question for you is it better to stay where you are adored and comfortable, where you know the rules and the people?
Or is it better to risk it all for a bend in the road where you might fail, where you might be small again, but where you might also find out who you really are?
That is a terrifying and wonderful question to leave on. Okay, let's unpack that on our own time later. For now, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Avonlea. Keep looking for the kindred spirits.
And definitely beware of blue paint.
See you next time.